the interesting thing is that light is everywhere. It's one person said, we have no idea. It's all around us. It's there always, and you cannot see it, but it is there. And he compared that to the air pressure. The message is that he said, we don't feel the air pressure. We do our shopping, we sit in the car, we don't feel the pressure, but it's there. The same way light is there. Light is everywhere.
Today, I'd like to welcome a very special guest and author, Robert Christophor Coppes. Welcome, Robert. How is today treating you so far?
Thank you for being on your show. Thank you very much. It's wonderful to be here. It's at my end, it's dark already. You're in the light because there's such a big time difference between us. You're in Phoenix and I'm in Amsterdam in Europe, in the Netherlands.
Yes. Yes. And I'm so grateful that you are joining me today, all the way from Amsterdam. I love how technology can connect us to so many people now. It's such an honor and such a pleasure to have you here. I have seen you on several interviews, and I've also dived into your website and seen that you've written quite a few books about near-death experiences. So I'm really excited to chat with you today about those. But before we get there, how about we start with, what was it that sparked your interest or motivated you to look into near-death experiences?
Good question. Yeah, it started somewhere, of course. Well, that was long ago when I was doing my studies at a university in the Netherlands. I'm an economist, actually, so that's what I studied. But then I came across the book of Raymond Moody, Life After Life, and it really caught me. And that shows you that even economists can be spiritual. But I read it, and the thing that really struck me was that there was an interview with a woman who had her near-death experience. And in her near-death experience, she had her life review. Not everyone gets a life review. I can tell you more about that later on. But the thing is that she had her life review and she saw everything she had done during her life. And there were also things that she was not very happy with. But the thing was, she was not judged. There was no judgment. That no one judged her for whatever she did. And you can say, if someone judged her, then it was herself during seeing this whole life of her passing by. But no one judges you. And you have to know that I was raised Roman Catholic, and that is with all the frills like purgatory and hell. And I never really thought, well, you're brought up with it. Your mother tells you about that. And then I thought that cannot be true. It didn't resound with me. It didn't resonate that there was something there. And then I read this and I thought, this is how it is. You don't need to be judged by anyone else. You can do it yourself if necessary. But also understood from near-death experiences that even in a life review, you don't have to judge yourself. You can be just neutral and just be an onlooker, because the whole idea is that just that you get to see your position on earth and what you did with other people, things like that. That's all there is.
Thank you so much for sharing that. I resonate so much with that. I myself was raised in a Catholic home, and there was a lot of messaging around going to hell if I did things bad. And one of my fascinations with near-death experiences came out of listening to those who shared their life reviews. And
Yes.
the other fascination came out of, there really is no hell. And it just brought me so much comfort. And just like you, I just questioned it. I didn't resonate, and none of it made sense to me, but I had nowhere to look. And near-death experiences brought me to a place of where I could look. So
Yeah.
I appreciate you sharing that spark. It's very similar to mine. And I'm curious because I know you've written several books around near-death experiences that focus on a couple of different things. And one of those books is about near-death experiences and religion. Would you talk about that book a little bit and what you found?
Yeah, first about the religion book. Yeah, that's actually that was a book that the first one that I wrote in Dutch. It started with my own language, of course, and then I translated that in English, because when I was getting interested in near-death experiences, I had my career to look after, and then halfway my career, I thought, wow, what about the near-death experience? So that caught my attention again. Then I wanted to compare those with the five main religions that are out there. So Hinduism, Buddhism, Christianity, Judaism, and Islam. And that got out of hand. I thought I'd do it only for myself, but then it got out of hand so big time that I thought, well, why don't I put it on paper and then send it in as a possible book? And it was published first in the Netherlands, and now it's also in English. So it's Essence of Religions, and it's interesting because actually my conclusion is that the real thing, so the real thing that people see during their near-death experience is much bigger than any one single religion. And the point is that there are things that compare well with near-death experiences, of course, from the religions, but there are also things that you will find in one religion and not in another. And to give you one example is in Hinduism, for instance, the idea is that everyone has God within him or her. And God is actually in everything. So also in plants and trees and whatever. And that's something that's not there in Judaism, in Islam, or Christianity. Because here in those three religions, God is someone else. It's a third person. It's someone who is coming by at the end of times and judging everyone. And then the good ones have to go and get to go to heaven, and the bad ones have to go to hell, and stuff like that. And that's not how it seemingly works. If you listen to near-death experiences, we all carry the light within us. We all have the divinity within us, and that's nice. But it also requires that people try to express that divinity, and that's difficult in itself, because we all have time and space as limitations. You can't just be in another time. You can't just be in another place. I can't be with you at this moment. I have to take a plane, and that takes me hours. But over there, you can be wherever you want to be. There's no limitations. And with the limitations, we need to get some food, and I want to have some of this or some of that. So that makes life more difficult, but also exciting. It's whole idea is about excitement also.
Yeah.
Because on the other side, everything is so nice. It's wonderful. It's perfect. So, and some NDEs actually say this world that we are in was specifically created for us, or actually for God, to just play or to experience limitations, and then within those limitations still try to get the love out there, because love is the most important thing. That's what NDEs say.
Yes, I was actually just going to mention love when you said everything is so nice over there. And I'm curious your thoughts or perspective or even collected data from your research around religion and how it may affect our, not ours, because I haven't had a near death experience, but those who have. What I often hear is that on the other side, people will see Jesus or they'll see images or figures or angels that actually are from their religion. And I'm
Mhm.
curious, what do you have to say about that?
Well, the thing that we know from what we have studied until so far is that NDEs are partially also colored culturally. So typically someone from a Western Judeo-Christian society will not uh, see other deities like Krishna or Buddha is not a deity, by the way, or Muhammad or so. So correct, people do see Jesus, and it happens frequently. But people also see from other religions, see Muhammad or see, and that's not a deity either, but an important religious figure, or others like Krishna or Shiva. You mentioned them. So that's and people with that are atheists also have NDEs. It is not confined to people who are into Christianity. That's not how we see the things from the facts, because anyone can have an NDE. It happens to. It's not non-discriminatory. Um, Black people, white people, rich people, poor people, um, atheists, Christians, Buddhists, you mentioned them, they are everywhere. So, and that's the nice thing. And yet they are colored. They're sort of colored. And the reason we think that is because there's still, you're not really dead. You still have your foot in this world, and you carry with you your own images and your own knowledge. And so the other side is so incomprehensible. And that's another thing that people say, and the ears say, it's ineffable. We don't have concepts or words enough to express what it is, but it's also so otherworldly that we cannot understand what it is. So what do people do is just label the things that they have seen, probably, because why would Jesus be seen, whereas also Shiva and Krishna have been seen, and other deities from other religions? And knowing that religions here on earth exclude each other. So that's a nice thing. But probably Jesus has lived, but also the Muhammad has lived, and other deities. So that's the whole idea. It's very diverse what you see if you speak to all the to many NDEs.
Yeah, I want to jump back to, you mentioned atheists, and one of the things that I find so fascinating is I personally have not heard an interview or read a near-death experience story of someone who was an atheist, had their near-death experience, and has now integrated as a believer of a higher power or something beyond. I would love to hear your perspective on that as well.
Well, as I said, anyone can have an NDE. So also people that do not adhere to a specific religion, so atheists. And the interesting thing is that people that do adhere to a specific religion after their NDE become less religious and more spiritual, they become more interested in other religions to see how it works there or what they say there, and to do some comparison. So that's the idea. It's and atheists, real atheists, stop being atheist because they know that there is something out there, and even though they can't label it with a specific name or so. So that's what happens. So you must think that the important thing of all these NDEs is that it can happen to anyone, and that we are all loved. Everyone is loved. And that's another thing that's very important. The unconditional love that is mentioned by so many NDEs is very specific. It happens, it is told over and over again by everyone. And there have been people that said even the term unconditional is just a whisper of what the real thing is. So, and with an unconditional, you have to really try to understand what that means. It means that there are no conditions there to have that love. So you can be atheist, you can be Buddhist, you can be Christian, you can be anything. You can even be bad if you have been bad. And the word bad and good are of the earth. That's another thing that people say that I've heard from NDEs. Good and bad don't have no meaning on the other side. So also people that have been bad and or you maybe you hate them or so, and I always say to people in when I have my talk, think of someone you really don't like. Everyone has someone like that. It may be a politician or someone around the corner, I don't know, or in your work, but also for that person, there's unconditional love. It's not for you to decide who will have that love. It is for everyone. That's the idea, and I think that's wonderful, because that means that we are all part of it. And that's another thing that people say, and is that they really say that we are one in this all, that we are closely interconnected, at least closely interconnected. And that means that also the person you don't like, or the politician that you hate, or the co-worker you have quarrels with, also that one you're connected with. That's also a nice thing to think of. No one is excluded. That's the idea. That's the idea. No one is excluded.
I love that you just said that no one is excluded, because growing up, I felt like it's possible that I could be. And when I think of love, I think of it's all inclusive. And it was through several works like The Course in Miracles, The Way of Mastery, Eckhart Tolle's work, that I started to get introduced to some, context that we are all one, and that, we are loved no matter what. And it was the near-death experiences that I listened to or read that actually validated that what I was resonating with was in fact actually true. And so I just really appreciate you taking us in that direction, because one thing I do often hear is that we can't even begin to imagine even a fraction of the love that is available, or that just is for us.
Yes, the quotes that are out there from NDEs about how big that love is and how all encompassing it is, those quotes are wonderful. The idea that you get out of that is that it's so big, it's so unearthly, and it's there for all of us. And people who encountered it during their NDE are totally blown away by it. So, and there's this wonderful story of a woman. Maybe I can tell that story on the sideline. She was a very unhappy person. She was married and she stayed in Austria. She was very alone there, and on her marriage didn't go well. And then on top of everything, she got to hear that she couldn't get any children now, and that's one of the things she really wanted to have, children. So, and then she sort of committed suicide and had her NDE, and she had a wonderful experience. And at the end of that experience, she wanted to have it back again. And then suddenly Jesus came towards her. And I already explained to you that also other deities are being seen during NDEs, but not in hers. She saw Jesus. And Jesus said to her, don't waste your time thinking you are not loved. So don't waste your time thinking you're not loved. And then once she was okay again, she thought of those words and that particular line, because that stuck with her, of course. And she thought, apparently I do have a life that I can waste. And I shouldn't do that. So that was one thing. And the other thing was that we are all loved. And that didn't only apply, that line doesn't only apply to her. It applies to everyone. The idea is that we are all loved. So don't waste your life thinking you're not loved. You're loved beyond your wildest dreams, and do something with your life. Do something nice. And
yeah. Wow, that is so powerful. Don't waste your time thinking that you are not loved.
Yeah, don't waste your life thinking
Your
but
life.
that's the same. And the other thing is, maybe this is also a nice experience that I came across, and those are all in my book. The other book that I wrote, it's the impressions of near-death experiences. It's more than, well, hundreds of quotes from more than 100 NDEs, and it has various topics in it. And to tell you this story about a little girl, 8-year-old, she was assaulted by 2 men. Yeah, sometimes NDEs start in a not very nice way. So they tried to drown her, and her face was underwater facing up, so she could see the sun through the water. And at the same time, she saw the whole scene with the 2 guys there, and her father rushing from where he was to rescue her. And the dual perspective is something that occurs regularly in NDE. So you have 2 points of view that you can have. And then this, she said, and during my NDE, I had this talk with this a person, and it couldn't be anyone than God. The 8-year-old girl said it must have been God. And God told me that I had to go back, and there was an easy way to do my life. He gave me a recipe for it, and the recipe contained only 4 ingredients, and the ingredients were, here they come. The first one is love, be loved, just be, and experience life. Those were the 4. So love, be loved, just be, and experience life. The latter 2, I always say, they are the most easy ones, because whatever you do, you experience life, and you just be. But the 2 first ones require some more action. And the action is to love someone else or love others, not only one person, but others, also nature and animals, and also allow others to love you. And that's also sometimes difficult for people to do. So that was a nice story that I came across, and I just thought at this moment to just share that with you.
Yes, Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. It did spark a curiosity when you mentioned how she had just only made up that it could have been God that she had talked to, and
Mm,
that God said it wasn't her time yet.
yes.
And I noticed that there's kind of a bit of a variation in different stories where some people are told it's not your time and others have a choice. I'm curious if you have any information on why that could be.
Yeah, it's something that's undecided. It's funny because, you know, NDEs are all different. There's not one equal to another. And sometimes people get to hear, you have a choice. You can either stay or you can go back. And then they show things, what your life would be if you would go back. And sometimes they say in certain circumstances, if you don't go back and you stay here, then you need to go back again in some other form, experiencing the same troubles. Most of the time, they are troubles. And because people want to avoid those troubles, but the troubles are there for a reason. And I don't know what the reason is, but they are important. For all the listeners that are listening, if you have troubles, they're not there for nothing. They are, I don't know how it works, but it's important that you go through them. And I really hope you go through them. But sometimes people are told, I, you have to go back. And that occurs in most cases. People really need to go back because they have a task. We all have a task. If you don't have a task, you wouldn't be here. You would go, you would be out, you'd be in heaven. So being here means that you have a task, and it doesn't need to be something big like being a king or a superstar, or you mentioned something else, but it can be something uh, important like being a house mother or a house father, or someone who brings bread into the house to eat and stuff like that. But there's an interesting story of a woman that I also want to tell you. Then, in this case, that you ask about someone who had to go back to the earth. She was there, and she wanted to go back to earth because she had a child to look after. And but when she was there on the other side, she really saw everything. She understood everything, and she thought, "My, this is really simple. It's very. How is it possible we don't see how it works when we are in the flesh, when we are in our body?" It's. She really said it's very simple. It's like you're an ant crawling on a human, and you're so small you don't see the whole human. That's the idea. And she said, I knew I had to go back to Earth, and I was, yay, I want to go back to Earth because of my child. And then she thought, I'm going to remember one line that says it all, that really expresses what it is all about on the other side, or what life is all about. And then this one sentence, she held on to it, and it was, all is everything, and everything is one. So all is everything, and everything is one. And what exactly it means, I really don't know, except for that she stressed that we are one. We are one in this whole world, meaning that I am you and you me. We are um, interconnected in such a strange way we don't understand it here. But that also has to do with life reviews. In a life review, if you see what you've done to others, you don't see it as an onlooker, as someone who says, "Oh, I did something wrong there," or "I did something wonderful there." No, you're also the other party. You are the receiving party for a while. You experience what it is that is being done to you by yourself. You see, this is important. It means that I am actually you. I can be you when I die. I know how I went about with you, what I did to you, or well, being nice or being nasty, or whatever it is, I will be feeling that as if I'm you. And that's being said consistently by so many NDEs, and that shows you that we are from another side, that we are one, that you can't just do something to someone and just walk away and think, I don't feel anything. You can't say that. You may not feel it now, but you will feel it in due course.
Yeah.
And that's interesting because it makes us one whole. And I think if people really realize that, then they will start changing their attitude towards other people and towards nature and towards animals too, because they are important as well.
Yeah, absolutely. When you first shared the quote that the woman shared, and I hope I get it right, all is everything and everything is one. I
Yes.
immediately thought of the life review and how when the common themes I hear in life reviews are that they're seeing everything and they're also experiencing it both as themselves and as the other person. And so many come back, and as they reintegrate, their messages are about kindness and about love because they've seen it, they've experienced it, not only from their own point of view, but from the other's point of view as well.
Yes.
And we really are one. And I will tell you that has, I'm a mom, and that has helped me not only navigate very sticky situations with my kids, but help them when they're wanting to hurt each other.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
It gives you, if you really understand, or when you really try to understand, I don't understand it all the way, of course, but I've heard it so often that I have given it a lot of thoughts. If people really give it a lot of thoughts, then it changes their lives.
Yeah.
And to give you an example of a person who had a near-death experience, in my book, there are so many quotes, or so many stories. And I think it's the best book that I wrote, not because I wrote it, but because it was written by NDEs. They had all their quotes there. But this particular thing that I wanted to tell you is a story by that Damien Brinkley experience. He is a guy who wrote a book about his NDE. He had a lightning strike through a landline telephone, and he was out, and he had his NDE. And he said, when I saw my life review, I knew I was a terrible guy. I was bullying children in school. I stole their bikes, and I was in a lot of fights. And later in life, I was working for this American organization that went abroad to shoot other people that were not that were somehow I don't know how you say it, enemy of the US in their perspective. And he said, I killed people, many people, and one time I blew up a whole hotel with 50 people in it to just get out one, to take out one. And then 49 innocent bystanders just were evaporated as well in the course. And he said, during my life review, I saw all those lives as if I were those people. But not only these people, but also the wives and the children of these people that were left behind, that had no father or husband anymore. And then he said that was the most horrible thing that happened to me, to go through all these lives of others as if I was those people. And but nevertheless, his NDE was a blissful one, a wonderful NDE with a lot of unconditional love also to him. So that shows you that you can do whatever you want to do, you still will have unconditional love. But the message is to be nice to others, to bring love to others. As I told you with the little girl of 8, love and be loved, because you will feel better when you go through your life review, or when you review, or when you see your life.
That is really powerful. And it brought me to another aspect of kindness and love. And it's not just me. It doesn't just stop at the other person. There is a ripple effect. And I've heard other people talk about how they've seen the impact of the ripple effect. And not only that, in the story you just mentioned, this man saw he wasn't a kind person. He killed many people, but he didn't go to hell. He was loved in his experience. And that, I think, is just so fascinating, unexplainably fascinating, and kind of defies what most of us have been conditioned to believe about our behaviors here in this time-space reality.
Yeah. Talking about hell, and in this case, the guy had a wonderful experience. There are also stories, maybe you can't come across those, of people who had hellish kind of experiences, and they are a real minority, but the minority is big enough to say that it's that you cannot discard those experiences. So they are there, and they happen. But the thing is, we cannot say that quote bad people only will get distressing NDEs, and good guys and good women get quote good women, good men get blissful NDE. That's not how it is. We know, for example, this guy Danny Brinkley was a nasty guy. He said it himself, and he nevertheless had a blissful NDE. And there are other examples of people who were just common people, just like you and me, and they had a distressing NDE. And one of them, or several, have written books about those. And I think these people are so brave to do that, because how else do we get some knowledge about that? MK McDaniel is one of those people, and she said, and I know her, she was just an ordinary, normal person like any one of us. And nevertheless, she had a terrifying NDE with AIDS in it, and prostitution and stuff, and horrible figures. And later she said, because I had these judgments on people with AIDS or with prostitution, that popped up in my NDE. And there are researches that really go into these kind of phenomenon. And a theory that I believe in is that once you're in your near-death experience, you're not really all the way dead. So things like from your own experience or from the collective conscious can still pop up. And these are images that we all know, and they can just come by and be really terrifying there for you. But I don't think, and I believe strongly that there is no hell, because of this, that you cannot say that bad people have distressing NDEs and good people have blissful ones. And moreover, there are also NDEs who have explicitly heard that there is no hell. Like Chris Carlson, he heard it during his NDE. He said, I explicitly heard there was no hell and no purgatory. and there are others. Someone else said similar things, and he said, we all go home. The home is where we all belong. That's where we all go. So I wanted to leave that subject on the positive note because I do not believe that there is a hell and there's no purgatory. And it doesn't figure because we are all one. This thing that we are part of, that we are a little whimsical part of, is one. So why would there be a part of that oneness be left in distress? I don't think it's logical. Moreover, why do so many NDEs hear and feel that unconditional love is there for everyone? If that's for everyone and it's unconditional, why then have a few go to hell? It makes no sense. And I don't think that's the case. I believe in an absolute loving power that encompasses everyone.
I agree with you. I have interviewed several near-death experiencers, and one woman in particular, she had mentioned how when she was having her experience, anything she thought of, she would immediately get the truth or the answers. And because she had a background in Christianity, she also was diving into some magic and witchcraft. And so when she had her near-death experience, she was very concerned about, is heaven real or is hell real? Is there a hell? And she continued to get the answer that it's not. And so I agree with you. And I also have noticed a pattern with the very few that have had not the most blissful experience or some fear within their experience, that there is a part within their near-death experience where they do experience that love, or they kind of get through it. And I am curious if you have any more thoughts on this, but what I make up about that, or what I've heard people also comment on that, is that that's also kind of a bit of that soul's journey for whatever that soul has called it.
You're right. You're right there. It's a wonderful book, Blessing in Disguise, written by Barbara Romer. She had discussions with many people who had distressful NDEs, and the thing that she always saw was that it had a function for these people in their rest of their lives. And you are right when you said to a certain extent you can color your own NDE. It is whatever you want to have, you'll get. So if you die with anxious feelings or something, the first part will maybe be colored in that way. And to give an example there, a nice example in this case, that you can have some influence over your NDE. There's Ellen Dye, a friend of mine who had a near-death experience. She was hanging in this wonderful, dark area, nothing there. There was nothing there. She was the only one there, but there was a lot of love. So she felt wonderful, and she was hovering there in nothingness. And then after a while, she thought, well, it's nice here, but I'd like to see something. And then the funny thing happened. She said it was as if a hand with a lot of paintbrushes came along and just painted this wonderful canvas with rolling hills and wonderful flowers and plants and waterfalls and stuff like that, birds humming and singing and whatever, and she was in awe that just happened. It was just happening to her because she asked for this. And it's true, most distressing NDEs end on a positive note. There is something there like they ask for light, or they ask for Jesus, or they ask for their own deity that they know of, and then things change. I know even one person who uh, started to meditate to get all these anxiety feelings away, and then everything went softer, smoother, and nicer, and the anxiety things went away. So we do have some kind of influence over what we see. So I always say, just look for the light, ask for the light, and you'll be in wonders.
Reach for the light, always.
Yeah, always, always. But also on Earth, the interesting thing is that light is everywhere. It's one person said, we have no idea. It's all around us. It's there always, and you cannot see it, but it is there. And he compared that to the air pressure. You know, air pressure, there's this column of air that's exerting weight on us. In your country, it is, I looked it up, 15 pounds per square inch. In my metric country, it's very easy. It's 1 kilo per square centimeter, per 1 square centimeter. But
we're very
the idea,
difficult over here.
yeah, it's your miles and whatever you have, it's different. But the message is that he said, we don't feel the air pressure. We do our shopping, we sit in the car, we don't feel the pressure, but it's there. The same way light is there. Light is everywhere. So if you're having your death experience, your real death experience, just look for the light, because it's there. Yeah. Actually, you are part of the light.
Yes, I was just going to say that. So I interviewed a man last week that had a near-death experience. And one of the most prevalent parts, I mean, his whole story was powerful, but he also mentioned how there was a moment where he could see every single human being. At this time that he had his near-death experience was 40 years ago. So the 7 billion human beings, and he could see
It's
the light radiating out of each and every human. And he has not yet to see that as he's reintegrated, but he knows it's there.
Yeah, yeah. It's funny that you say that story, because I heard someone else who said something similar. That this it was a woman, I think. She saw every person on earth, and especially the women that were in labor, giving birth to children. They stood out. Something like that, she said, and that's a nice thing. We don't understand how that is, that you can see all these 7 billion people, or 8 billion, how many are there? But it's when you are there, you can do everything. You're so powerful. You can be in multiple times if you want to be. There are wonderful stories about that too.
Yeah.
That people just accessed another time frame and were someone else for a fleeting moment. Yeah. I don't know, maybe there's a possibility to tell that story still. There's
yeah.
this is wonderful. This is that was awe-striking for me as well. You have to think, there's this man, he had a friend, and the friend died a few days before. And this man was really so sad, also about his life, his own life, and the death of his friend. And so he was very depressed, and for one or other reason, he had his near-death experience. So he died as well, briefly. But then in his near-death experience, he saw this friend again, who just passed away a few days before. And then he thought, okay, if I can see this guy, then, and he's dead, then I must be dead too. And that's where it started, because then they got into a conversation. This friend of his knew that he was very interested in Michelangelo, the Italian artist, and he wanted to show the NDE that time is fluent, that it's you can be in any time frame you want to be. And so he took this NDE to the time of Michelangelo, knowing that he was very much interested in Michelangelo. And they were there in the Sistine Chapel while Michelangelo was painting the ceiling. And then this NDE was like, how is it possible that I am in that time frame? And how does it work? And then for a fleeting moment, he became Michelangelo. And he said that was staggering beyond words. Now, these are stories, but I thought this was a very strange story. So it stuck with me too, and that's also in my book. But there are more people that have been in different time frames. And how that is possible, we don't know. But a friend of mine from here, from Amsterdam, she said that you can see a different time frame when you're out there. So not here on Earth, but when you're in your NDE or somewhere else, you can compare that to hovering in an aircraft and have a different point of view. What she said is, and we have here Amsterdam, and the city next door is Harlem. That's where Harlem in New York came from. But so these cities are 11 miles apart. I mean, so if you are in Amsterdam, you can't see Harlem and vice versa. But when you're in the airplane, you can see them both at the same time. And that's also how time works, apparently. There is a possibility of taking a point of view where you can see different time frames. Whereas if you're on Earth in your body, you cannot take that position. So it requires a different position. That's how she explained it to me. And I thought that was wonderful to do.
I love that. Thank you so much for sharing that. I know we've been talking for a while, and I have a couple of questions that I ask all my guests. But
Okay.
before we go there, I'm curious if there's anything else that you feel wants to be shared about anything we've talked about or not talked about so far today.
I think we've covered a lot of things. I said about the love and the oneness. I think those are important. Another thing is that how can we prove these things that they are real? Now, we didn't touch upon that, but there are a lot of veridical observations. That's a scientific term for verifiable out-of-body experiences, to just quickly tell what they are. If you have your NDE, the first phase often is that you get out of your body and can roam around where you are. You can see, for instance, that's an actual case, in the ledge of the hospital, there's a shoe. You cannot see that from where your body is, and your body has been taken in unconsciously. So you can never have been seen that shoe that is there. Yet a nurse went looking for the shoe and found it in the ledge. And there are hundreds of these stories. And they're also in the book published by Atheists, The Self Does Not Die. The Self Does Not Die. It's a wonderful book. And it's also published by Atheists, like my book, in Impressions of Near-Death Experiences. And I think when people see that these experiences are real, then they get to think about the messages. And the messages for me are oneness and unconditional love. And maybe people will change their way of life and be nicer to each other and animals and nature.
Because we are all one. I love that you,
that would be my message.
yes, thank you so much. And I love that you brought that piece in. It's one of my favorite questions to ask when I'm interviewing someone who has had a near-death experience. I always love to hear about the things that they verified. when they were having their near-death experience. And so, yeah, that could be a conversation, a
In
whole
itself.
nother episode
Yeah.
in and of itself. So I appreciate that. The first question that I ask all my guests is, how would you define God?
How would I define?
God, how would you
Oh,
define
God.
God?
Me, I would define God as everything. Uh, God is also in you. You have the divinity in you, and I do too, and anyone, also the people we really despise. So it's everyone, and also animals and stones in your car everywhere. It is the real thing is so big we cannot understand it from our little point of view from where we are. That will be my answer, and that's the oneness.
The second question is, what would you say is the purpose of life?
Love, be loved, just be, experience life. I follow Christina in this.
Yes. I love that. Thank you.
The little girl of 8.
Yes. And the final question is, if you could take one piece of wisdom that you have now and offer it to a younger version of yourself, what would that one piece of wisdom be?
I've been thinking about that. I think it would be, don't take everything so seriously. Make mistakes. Don't be afraid of making mistakes. Just make them, and be able to acknowledge them. Because once you acknowledge your mistakes, you can improve yourself. This is the only way. I wish I could have said that to me before.
I know.
Yeah.
We can say it to ourselves now.
No, we can say it to children. Yeah, I do work with children. That's the nice thing. I teach them Dutch and arithmetic. So once in a while, I put some of my wisdom in them, but it's they're more interested in playing and stuff like that. Yeah.
Yeah. How do people find you or get in touch with you?
The best thing is to go through my website. It's Bob Coppes, COPPES.com. There is a file there that you can fill out, and then I'll respond. I always respond to anyone that has a question or a remark. And yeah, again, read my book. You'll get a wide view of what it is. It gives an impression, because no one can really tell you what it is, what it actually is. If someone says to you, I know exactly how it works on that other side, turn around and rush away as quickly as possible. The only thing is you can do is to get more points of view, and then get some kind of impression of what the real thing is. We will never be able to understand the real thing, because our minds are three-dimensional, and time, so 4 dimensions, if you will. So we can't understand this multi-dimensional other area. Impossible.
Impossible. But I will be sure to include the links to your site and the links to your book or books in the description of this show. So, Bob, thank you so much for taking the time to share your wisdom with the world and to spend this hour with me talking about your books and everything that you've learned around your research with near-death experiences. It's been an honor and a pleasure. I'm so grateful. Thank you so much.
I enjoyed it thoroughly, and you're a wonderful person. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I would like to personally thank you for tuning in to this episode. If you haven't already, please be sure to like this episode, subscribe to my channel, and turn on notifications so that you never miss a beat.
And if you really resonated with this content, please share it with all of your friends so that collectively we can expand our consciousness. Have a very blessed week.